is the editor-in-chief and co-owner of pickthebrain.com, a website dedicated to self-improvement. She is also co-host of Pick the Brain podcast. Erin is the co-founder of Leaf TV, a video lifestyle brand for millennials, a company she built and sold. She has also worn so many different hats as screenwriter, stand-up comedian, political consultant, blogger, wrote a book, How to Get SHIT Done. She's also a life coach, and a mother. Not too many things you're doing. So how are you handling the pandemic and being cooped up in your house with everyone?
Yeah, well, it's been a challenge, as has been, I'm sure, for everybody. The first couple of weeks were just, I felt completely, I was like, actually, how I do a lot of things in my life, but that did not work. And so we kind of got a schedule in place around the end of week 2, and that's been a real lifesaver. It's which is weird for me to say because I can't stand scheduling things out, but in this hopefully rare case, having a schedule and sticking to it, as best as possible with a 2-year-old has been really a really positive change.
And so, I mean, what does that schedule look like as far as, is everyone still in the same house?
Yeah. Yep, we're all
day long.
Yeah, we're here. It's mostly been around activities for George, my son, because before we were just kind of trying to go activity to activity to activity, like, let's see where the day takes us, and that we were just so everybody was just so exhausted and frustrated by the end of the day. And also, George is so active, he's used to being outside and running for like 3 to 4 hours a morning in the park, so he's not doing that, and he wasn't napping as a result. So it was like we didn't even get a break in the middle of the day. So after like 10 days of this, I was like, I'm not going to make it. Like, there's no time. I can't. This is the end for me. So when we started to get like different trade-off, like my husband would take him from this time and this time, so I had like a carved out chunk to do some of my work, and then vice versa, swap. And somehow I've managed to get the naps back in the mix. Because we bought a giant trampoline and literally jump on this for 2 hours.
That's great.
So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So good. So you've got your life in order. You're getting scheduled out.
Well, I wouldn't say that. If I've given you that that impression, that is incorrect.
Okay, so from your book, How to Get Shit Done, how are you following your own advice? Is there one specific thing from the book that you can say you're doing besides the schedule that you made? Is there one specific thing that you could say the book sort of resonates and you're like, oh yeah, glad I wrote that in the book because it's getting through?
There are a couple things. I think at the beginning, again, I was just running around, and also just at large, there's a general anxiety and you don't know what's going on, and a collective unease or disease. And so your mind is scrambling, and it's amazing how quickly you can be a very concentrated, focused person. Then all of a sudden you don't have control over anything, starting from your thoughts and your anxiety and all of that stuff, even if you're not prone to that stuff to begin with. And so one of the things that's been really important is grounding myself in 2 ways. Number one, making time for myself. So I talk a lot about in the book, the way to get more done is by doing less. And as you listed off the top, I'm doing a bajillion things, but still every day I have the time to, pre-virus, I had the time to meditate every morning, take a short nap every afternoon, and take a bath every night. And people would say to me, that's crazy. How can you do all of those things? And I said, I couldn't do what I'm doing without doing those things. Those things are rejuvenating, and those little pockets of 15, 20, 30 minutes allow me to have an energy where I'm like operating at max productivity. So I'm getting a lot done when I'm actually doing work stuff. So for me, I have made a conscientious effort to rest when I can, not to try and get a million things done, but rest when I want to rest, take a bath every night to just kind of ground, be calm, take some time for myself, and decompress because there's a lot going on. The second thing is I've relearned to be very kind of forgiving of myself, right? Like this is a very extreme situation. I was trying to be like, no screen time. We're only doing, being really rigid about the types of things that George was watching. And I was like, you know what? I'm really going to lean into and feel good about doing the best I can.
Right.
And not spinning my wheels. Like, I mean, the first week was just so bad because we really don't let George watch many shows at all and very small increments. And then it was just like, like
we're
all of
driving
a sudden,
ourselves crazy.
Right.
Right.
So I was like, this is crazy. This is a really rare, hopefully a really rare once in a lifetime situation. And you have to have forgiveness, self-forgiveness, and be able to adjust and it's not helping anybody being so uptight and so self-critical and trying to chase an idea of perfect. And that's what I talk about a lot in the book too. These are all false goals based on something that is completely outside of yourself. And so it's about just getting realistic, getting real about what your circumstance is, what your opportunity is right now, and leaning into those things, not leaning into some big grand idea. You've got to be able to be malleable and adaptable, especially in times like this.
Right, exactly. In the book, you open with the idea of pop. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so one of the main ideas of this book is that I feel, I hate the word productivity. The word itself, if you look at it, is product centered. It's not person centered.
And just to go back, you were actually commissioned to write this book, right? Simon & Schuster came to you and wanted a woman to write about women's productivity. Is that right?
Well, not Simon & Schuster, my agent. I didn't have an agent pre this, but a New York lit agent approached me and said, you've got this great blog and you've built this great other brand Leaf, and a lot of it is about productivity, really. And there are no big female voices in the productivity space. And so when I started to look at that, I was like, how could I tell this story? And that's where I kind of came to this idea of like the traditional ideas of productivity are really masculine focused, right? And so you've got to stop taking this idea of product centered productivity out of it. I asked my agent if I could come up with a new word, just throw the word productivity out altogether, because I just find it so misleading and inefficient in and of itself. But she said that nobody would go for that. So I came up with an idea called the pop effect, which is this idea that the first P stands for personality, the second O stands for opportunity, and the third P stands for productivity. And what that really is mapping out who you are, where you are, how you got there, and where you want to go, and then factoring all those things into what a personal productivity outlook might be for you, as opposed to this idea of like hours in, input out, hours in, input out, and trying to make that calculation. That's not sustainable. I really don't think that's sustainable for anybody, men or women, but I particularly don't think that is the best suited strategy for women. We wear so many hats. We've got so many other things going on. It doesn't mean we can't do our jobs or have stellar careers, but if we want to have those incorporated in a really meaningful way that works for us writ large, we've got to start being really getting really personal with what those success formulas will look like for you, not for somebody else.
Right. And you've become a coach, a personal coach for people. And I saw on your website that you are doing all of this, and you talk about how people really need to look at 3 areas of their life that they want to focus on, right? And I love the whole idea of outsource,
Mhm.
offload
Mhm.
and just stop caring or stop giving a damn, which
Mhm.
are three very difficult things for women to let go of, right?
Yes, definitely. So I am a life coach. I'm just about finished my master's in psychology. So I really wanted to get deeper into this entire world about, the psyche in general, but specifically the female psyche and what makes it tick and how it can operate in its fullest, most healthy form.
Right.
But yeah, first of all, I think that, we have so many options at our fingertips at all times. Like just trying to pick a movie or a TV show to watch at night. There are literally like 30,000 options. And I feel like there's option fatigue, not just in that way, but I could be doing this and I could be doing that and
Right.
I could be doing this. And I think that's lending itself to a lot of the fatigue and exhaustion and the burnout that we're seeing. So what I talk about in the book is being really diligent about choosing um, only 3 big goals at any one time. And I recommend doing them across the big kind of buckets in your life: career, personal, and then a relationship goal. But depending on where you're at with your life, if you're late 20s, early 30s, and you're all, career, 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 then maybe you take a couple in the career and then pivot out of that a couple years later. So it is flexible within, where you're at within your life. But again, it's just being really focused on what you want and not trying to be all things to all people and throwing enough spaghetti against the wall and hoping some of it sticks. That's not a good strategy. That's a
Right.
strategy for real frustration. Also, you start to really lose control, right? It's just, you don't know
Totally.
what it's like. Whatever gravitates, so you're not in the driver's seat anymore. How it's your materials received is what's driving it, and that's completely counterproductive.
Well, and then the other thing that is really focused on women's productivity is the idea that, for a lot of us women, we send our kids off to school in a normal
Hmm.
world.
Yeah.
And then we have those like 5 or 6 hours a day to
Hmm.
hopefully get what we want done.
Hmm.
And that really goes to our goals and being really um, just focused on those goals, yet
Hmm.
we end up doing the laundry and the dishes and cleaning and
Hmm.
making beds and all of these other things. And you talk very specifically about maybe not putting those things first.
Yeah. So, two things. Number one, what I recommend for everybody, whether you read the book or not, is doing a 7-day time challenge. And basically, it's like if you've ever heard of like a diet journal where you write down everything you eat. Well, for 7 days, you write down every single thing you do from the time you get up till the time you go to bed. And I'm not talking about when you run to the bathroom or something, but literally like got up, had breakfast for 15 minutes, you just map out all the big beats of your day. And at the end of that 7 days, I think you'll be shocked to see how much time how much time you're spending helping other people's agendas, not
Right,
yours. And
right.
when you look at that, and you look at it in black and white, it can be very, very jarring. Well, hopefully it is very jarring, because we're spending a lot of our time spinning our wheels, doing things that don't move the needle for us personally. And then when you talk about, or when I talk about, or you talk about these things like doing the laundry or doing the dishes, we also have there's a lot of kind of control we like to have. We complain about, oh, if I've got this to do and I've got this to do, but like also, this isn't, let me just speak for myself. Like when a partner has stepped in and done the dishes or folded the towels, I've been like, oh, that's not the way I like it, and then
Right,
redo it. And it's like, oh, I might as well just do it myself. So you really got to take a critical look at your own behavior, because a lot of it is self-imposed,
right,
right?
right. Just
That's
let it
a
go. Let it
let
be
it
done.
go.
Right.
Let it go. And that's why when you have 3 big goals and you've kind of mapped out a plan around those goals, it's much, much easier to let that stuff go. When
Mm-hmm.
you don't have a plan and everything's just kind of going and you don't really have a lot of control over it, you're not taking stock of it, it's more difficult to cut those things out. Secondly, I've been really surprised when I talk to a partner, and this is about like home stuff, totally willing to help. And yet I had created an entire narrative in my head that, it would be such an uphill battle to get some of this stuff done. And that's just not true. It's not fair. At least have the conversation about why this would be helpful for
Right.
you, for him, for the relation, him or her, for the relationship, and then start to have feelings about it if nothing positive comes out of it. But at least give the person a shot, you
Right,
know?
right, right. Don't just, yeah, assume that you have to do it all.
Right.
Have the
Yeah.
conversation, definitely. I was
Yeah.
so glad that just before the pandemic happened, I had told my daughters, I have three of them. So I said, if you use it, you clean it. So you use
Yeah.
the dish, you clean it. You want to
Yeah.
pick them up and do them all at once, that's fine, but it has to be done that day. And I
Right.
was so glad because at least that one thing was being checked
Yeah.
out. Now I'm having to remind sometimes, but still, at
Yeah.
least it was sort of already kind of put there. Um,
Yeah. At least the
because,
conversation is open. It started.
right, right. And being the maid to everyone is really not what I signed up for.
Right. Yeah. And it doesn't feel good.
No, no, not at all. And then it's like everyone else goes off and does their thing, but then we're still here, like cleaning up
Yeah.
after everyone else.
Yeah.
So, yes,
It's true.
very important. I love that. And that's where you say, like, sometimes we have to remember to put ourselves first,
Right.
which is another thing. Like, there's a lot of guilt that goes along with that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like if you want to have a hard conversation with your daughters about, or not even a hard conversation, but a conversation with your daughters about doing the dishes, and then you have to remind them, and that might be irritating. Maybe there might be some friction or pushback. Oh,
Oh,
you
yeah.
can hear my 2-year-old screaming over there. Um, that might be challenging or irritating, but honestly, it's so much better in the long run to do that, because what happens over time when you don't have those conversations is you build up resentment, you build up fatigue, there's sometimes hostility, and you're bringing that energy into the room. It's bad
That's
for
right.
everybody. It's not just bad for you, it's especially bad for you, but it so those kind of challenging conversations up front are much better to have than a long standing
Right.
irritation that turns into frustration and potentially hostility.
Absolutely. And by the way, since you only have a 2-year-old, I'm sure you already know this, but
Mhm.
you should start teaching that 2-year-old how to like do his own laundry
I'm try-
and put his own laundry
I'm
away.
literally
Because I sure wish I did that.
I'm trying. Like I come into his room and there are books everywhere, and I'm saying, you can read every single one of these books, but you need to put them back. It doesn't happen, but I'm trying to plant the
Oh
seed.
no, plant the seed. I didn't make that effort, and I am like, why didn't I do that? So if you plant the seed, you'll be grateful for eternity. I want to talk just for a minute about your website, which is
Hmm.
beautiful. And I love
Thank you.
how you really take the book and then, from the book, you can go to the website and you have even more, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I feel like there are 4 pillars there that I saw,
Hmm.
being motivation, productivity,
Yeah.
health, and wellness.
Hmm.
And you have articles there and you have your podcast, which is
Hmm.
amazing. So people can really dive into more and get like constant reminders from you.
Yeah. Yeah. Pick the Brain is a total labor of love for me. I've been doing it since about 2008, right when kind of 2000, maybe 2007, maybe right when blogging kind of started to take off in a major way. And right now I have almost 400 writers around the world, freelance writers around the world contributing content. And it's like, it's so amazing because it's a different perspective coming from all the corners of the world. And yet there are still so many things just as humans we're going through.
Yeah.
And it's pretty, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it must be really amazing to see that. In
Yeah.
your practice of coaching others,
Hmm.
what do you find to be like the one biggest hurdle?
Um, well, there are a couple. I would say number one, when people have really invested a lot of time in something, going on a path, and they haven't checked in with themselves at all, and then they come and they're like, I don't know why I'm not progressing, I'm feeling really frustrated, and we start to talk about, maybe this isn't the right path for you. there's a real, like, people cannot get over the fact that they might have put all that work in, and they view it as though that would have been wasted work. It's never wasted work. So one of the biggest challenges is, like, it's better to check in now and make a pivot than just bury your head in the sand and keep going on a path, because it's never too late to, start aligning with who you need to be. You come to that exactly when you're supposed to come to it. So everything you did before that was just building up to this moment. But it's very hard. There's a big fear factor. People do not want to think like, oh my God, I shouldn't have been a lawyer. You know what I mean? Like, that's very scary, right? So a lot of school, in that example, a lot of time spent in school, a lot of money spent in school, a lot of sleepless nights, trying to, but if your goal is to be successful in not just a financial way, but a larger fulfillment way, the reason that you're feeling so frustrated right now is because you have not checked in with yourself constantly. And now you found yourself in a place that you don't even know who you are or where you are or how you got here. And so that's really scary for people. That's probably the biggest hurdle. And then it depends when I get to it, when the person comes to me, but especially with women, there's a lot of expectations I feel like they're trying to live up to, especially like family, friends. They've kind of carved out a persona for themselves based on who they think the world thinks they should be. And so the idea of, like, disappointing people when considering making a change or, stepping into who they feel most comfortable is like so hard to overcome, because it's almost, they've done things to please people, but they've done it for so long, it's almost become a part of them.
Right.
So,
and
like,
it's
trying
so much
to
more scary to break out.
Right, exactly. So, like, trying to overcome that is really challenging, but it's really rewarding when you get to the other side of it. And you ruffle some feathers. You ruffle some feathers in the process. That's the thing.
Right.
And so you got to be okay with that.
Right. So that's where you come in and really help be their support and help them manage all of this. Well, this has been really great. You are a wealth of knowledge and experience and productivity yourself, and I am so grateful to know you and get advice from you directly. 2 more questions before we hop off this call. Anything that you have been doing during this quarantine time? Anything new that you've taken up or that you're sort of always wanted to do and trying it out now?
I've been this has just coincided with me being so buried with work, both through the master's and because I'm working on the second book right now.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to think if there's been anything
else. Yeah.
Anything new.
So many work avenues.
Well, I will tell you this. This isn't new, but it's new in the sense of how much I'm concentrating on it. One of the big things I'm so happy you brought this up. One of the best ways, like in those early days where I didn't know what was going on, I went back to my roots of stand-up comedy, not performing it, but I can't remember. I stumbled across a little clip on YouTube of a comedian I really like, and I was laughing out loud, and I after 5 minutes, whenever the clip ended, I was like, oh my God, I feel my whole mood has changed. And so, whereas before I was kind of binge watching dramas and psychological thrillers and really dark stuff, every night we're watching at least 10 minutes, but sometimes entire comedy specials of comedians we like, stuff I've seen before, new stuff, really laughing. And so I've really rediscovered my love of stand-up comedy. It's been such a powerful vehicle to change my mood and like really just rediscover my love of comedy. But I highly recommend, before you start binge watching Ozark or whatever you're watching tonight on Netflix, find, whatever's up your alley for comedy, find a 10-15 minute clip on YouTube or watch an entire special. And it's really like cathartic.
Favorite?
You know, it depends on my mood. I've been watching, well, we've been in quarantine so long. I bet it pulled out everybody. I like Mike Birbiglia. I like Jim Gaffigan. I pulled some old Jerry Seinfeld, you know, from 10 years ago. Watched that. I
Right.
watched some early Ellen. I've watched, my absolute favorite. Oh my God, what is it? Oh, I can't believe his name is escaping. Sebastian Maniscalco is just absolutely the funniest person to me on the planet right now.
That's
So
great. I'll have to check
yeah,
that out.
yeah.
I
I'm
definitely should, because
loving him.
they say that the number one medicine is laughter,
Laughter.
right?
Yeah, they're study after study. They do all of these studies on cancer patients, PTSD patients coming back from like, well, this was when coming back from Afghanistan, doing almost like comedy therapy.
Mhm.
Unreal, the results. That and music.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, and my one final question is, do you have a piece of advice? I mean, you've given us so much great advice, but advice or inspiration during this time that you would impart on others during the specific quarantine time,
Well,
where
I
we
said
do
it.
have more time at home and isolated in our houses?
Well, there's two things. There's two things. Number one, I'll just reiterate what I said at the top, which was take it easy on yourself.
Mhm.
It's easy to just, it's easy to spin out, and it's like, it's okay. I wouldn't even say to lower the bar, but to adjust it. You know, it's not about up or down. To me, it's like making shifts this way. It's not about you're failing or you're winning. It's like, let's just pivot according to what's going on, and let's look at the plane as like this.
Right.
The second of all, and I talked about this in a podcast episode, my own podcast episode, I think last week, is that this is hopefully, a once in a lifetime problem, but it's also a once in a lifetime opportunity. And
Right.
95% of people who are of us at the end of this will go back to who they were before it, more or less. 5% will change the course of their life. They will use this time to discover who they are, to discover what they love, to be curious about what's going on within them externally. And they will use this. This is unprecedented. This is
Right.
going on, what is it, almost 6 weeks in Los
Mhm.
Angeles? Is
Yeah.
it, it's five at least. And
Yeah,
it's
I
going
think
to
it's
be for
5.
another. So yes, we're trapped at home. Yes, some of us are trapped at home with small children. And there's a very kind of agonizing, on the one hand, reality to that. But to say that you're going to be at home, and it's not that we're not doing anything, but there's no commute. You've saved a
Right.
lot of time,
So much time. Can't
so
drive
much
anywhere.
time. So
Right.
you got to make a choice. We're hopefully about halfway through this. Are you going to be one of the 95% that goes back to, you might have a couple weeks or a couple months coming out of this where you feel like you're going to change, but ultimately you'll go back? Or do you want to be one of the 5% that has changed the course of their life, has utilized this, looked at this as an personal opportunity, and changed their life? Because
Right.
that's what this is, if you have that perspective.
Right. Yeah, no, it's amazing time. As you
Yeah,
say, like it's a once in a lifetime opportunity in so
yeah,
many ways. I mean, of course,
yeah,
it's so sad for the people who are being hit by this and who
yeah,
are getting sick, and for healthcare workers, but yeah, it's so true. Thank you
yeah.
so much. And thank you to everyone who has been watching today, for joining Erin and I. Erin Falconer can be reached at pickthebrain.com. I can be reached at Beyond the Book with Julie. And it's been so much fun with you,
Good.
Erin. I look
Thank
forward
you so
to
much, Julie.
food.